Yeah. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So today we're learning about. Let me see. I think I'm zoomed in a little too much. We're learning about some special right triangles. Now, what I'm about to show you isn't like it's not something that you have to have knowledge of, but it's helpful and it's sort of like a shortcut. Those of you who like shortcuts, you will like this. Okay? Yeah, you shortcut people are going to love this. So the first triangle that we're going to talk about is a 40.
The FFA week schedule for the dress up is going to be tomorrow will be camo day. Thursday is dress up as a farmer, rancher, or cowboy day. And there will be a student lunch on Thursday for the all FFA exhibitors, hot dogs. Friday you can dress up as your favorite agricultural career day. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about 45, 45, 90 triangle. Now, since this angle and this angle are congruent, what does that tell us about these two sides? They're also congruent. So whatever this is the same thing, right? So if I say this is x, then this is also x. Y'all with me? Now, this side over here, this is our hypotenuse, right? That's our hypotenuse. And if we plug this into Pythagorean theorem, we have x squared plus x squared equals c squared, right? Now, if you're adding x squared and x squared, what does that get you? 2x squared. Good. And if we're trying to get c by itself, how do we unsquare that? Square root it. So we're going to square root both sides, right? Now, we can't square root 2 because it's not a perfect square. But we can square root x squared. What is the square root of x squared? X. So to find c, we need to take the value for the short sides and multiply them by the square root of 2. So like if this side is 5, this side is also 5, this side is 5 square roots of 2. Y'all see how that works? Yes, sir. 10. So if we're doing this, this is an exact answer, but on your paper that you'll be doing, you'll do it in class tomorrow, you're going to punch it in the calculator and then round to the nearest 10. So somebody tell me what 5 square roots of 2 is. So that's approximately 7.1. Now there's 2 reasons that I'm having you round to the nearest 10th on this. Reason number 1 is because some of these are going to be like fractional, and it's such a pain for y'all to have to put those in on the Chromebooks and then having square roots in them. I just thought it'd be easier for you to type them in. Reason number 2 is because the answer document that some people will go hunt down online puts them like this. I want them to have to work for it a little bit. So if they're going to copy, they're going to have to take the copy and then figure out what that is as a decimal. So at least they're having to do something. Okay? All right, so let's take this knowledge that we have right here and take it to our skills practice. Okay? So if we look at number 1. Let me zoom in. Okay, so this side is 25. What is this side over here? 25. And then this side is 25 times the square root of 2. And we'll just punch this in our calculator and get an approximate answer that we round to the nearest 10. Okay? So y'all want to plug that in, make sure you know what you're doing. What is it? 35.3? 35.4?
5 rounds of
5 rounds of 4 up. Okay. Okay, we're going to skip 2 and come back to it in a minute. Let's look at 3. So this side is 48. What is this side? 48. What is this side? 48 square root of 2. Okay, so you punch that in. What do you get? 67.9. Everybody agree? Okay, we're going to skip 4. We'll come back to it. Look at 5. So if this side is 100, what's this side? And this side is 100 square roots of 2. So then you do that math. 141.4, Preston says. Excuse me. Okay, now let's go back to 2 for a minute. So notice on 2, they gave us a whole number for C, right? And we know that we get C by taking whatever the short side, in this case the short side is X, and we multiply that by the square root of 2, right? So if we were wanting to find out what X is, what mathematically would we have to do to this to get that X? All right, so let's back it up a second. What's happening between X and square root of 2? What are they doing to each other? They are multiplying. How do you unmultiply stuff? Divide it. So we're going to divide this by the square root of 2, just like this, right? And you actually can just plug this in your calculator and get a decimal. But we need to talk about this for a minute. Okay? So, here's the problem. That's a radical in the denominator of a fraction. And if we're leaving it, we can't leave a radical in the denominator of a fraction. We have to do what's called rationalize the denominator, which just means make the denominator a rational number. And a rational number can't be a radical, okay? And it sounds super complicated, but it's actually super simple to do. If you want to rationalize the denominator of any fraction, all you have to do is multiply it by itself. Here's why. If we multiply these two things right here, then that's going to be the square root of 2 times 2. That's a number times itself. And square rooting is what number is being multiplied times itself. So when we say the square root of 2 times 2, what's that going to be? It's going to be 2. Now, if you think it on out, what's 2 times 2? What's the square root of 4? 2. So either way you look at it, you're still getting the same number, right? The only problem is we can't multiply the bottom by something without multiplying the top by that same thing. Little short sidebar for a second. What's 4 divided by 4? What's 7 divided by 7? 12 divided by 12. Square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2. 1, still 1. Anytime you divide something by itself, it is equivalent to 1, right? So we're just multiplying this by the number 1. We're just doing it in such a way that it transforms what it looks like. Does that make sense? It's like giving the number a facelift, right? It's still the same number. We're just making it look different. Now, what we wind up with is 17 square roots of 2 over 2. And that would be our rationalized exact answer. Now, if we plug it in the calculator.
Morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Jared Munoz and Joseph Beaver needs to come to the office, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I bet this is about absences. Because Mr. Neely popped in the door and then left. I don't know what that was. Okay, so if we plug it in, right? So we did 17 divided by the square root of 2. That was our first thing. This is what we get. If we do What am I doing? 17 times the square root of 2 over 2. This is what we get, right? If we do, that was only our only options, wasn't it? That's it. So it's the same thing either way. Y'all see how that works? Same thing. This is just in proper form, and this is not in proper form. That's the difference in them. All right? On your paper, you're going to be putting this, which is 12.0. I don't think any of the ones on your paper don't have a decimal, but if they don't have a number in the tenths place, put 0.0, okay? But I think they all have a number there. I think. Okay, so what we just learned on this one is that this side over here, this x, is 12.0, right? All right, let's look at 4. 4 is the same scenario. Same song, second verse. This is 100. So to find this x over here, what are we going to do? And then what? Now, we can just plug that in our calculator and get a decimal, but I want us to go through the process of rationalizing that also. So we've got 100 divided by the square root of 2. And to get rid of that on the bottom, we're going to multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. What does that leave us with on the bottom down here? 2. And then on the top we have 100 times the square root of 2. Now, we're going to add a little extra to it. Earlier, we had 17 square roots of 2 over 2. Nothing else we can do with that. But here, we have 100. 100 is divisible by 2. Right? Good Lord, what is that? Sounds like they let out the hounds of hell or something. So what is 100 divided by 2? So this is simplified 50 square roots of 2. We can just divide that 100 by the 2. If this number right here is an even number, then we'll divide by the 2. If it's an odd number, we'll leave it as a fraction. Okay? So just to show you that this really does work, I'm going to zoom out just a hair. So we started off, we had 100 divided by the square root of 2. This is what we would get, right? Then we said, oh, we need to rationalize that. So we put it in a fraction and we did 100 square roots of 2 over 2. And this is what we get, right? But if we simplify that and we have 50 square roots of 2, we still get the same thing. Y'all see how that works? Now, why am I showing you this right here? Because you need to know how to do this. Okay? Why are we putting it as a decimal? To catch them cheaters. That's what we're doing it. That sounded very much like... Do y'all know who the principal, Jerry... I can't think of his last name. He does videos. He's like an elementary school principal, and he... Anyway, that sounded like him. Okay. Look at number 6. What are we going to do? Same thing. So what do we wind up doing mathematically if they give us a whole number here to get this over here? What do we do with this? It's going to wind up being 88 square root of 2 over 2. That's what it's going to wind up being, right? Now, since that 88 is an even number, we can simplify this to what? 44 square root of 2, right? Now, let's talk about where that come from, because not everybody's at that place, right? So what did we do? We said, well, 88 equals x times the square root of 2. How do we get there? Oh, we divide by the square root of 2, right? And now we can't leave this down here, so we're going to multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. Y'all with me? And that's going to give me 2 on the bottom, 88 times the square root of 2 on top. 2 goes into 88 and leaves us with 44 square roots of 2. So y'all see how that works, okay? So those of you who have already figured out the shortcut to this can totally do that. That's totally okay, all right? Okay, look at 7. On number 7, it says determine the length of the leg of a 45, 45, 90 triangle with a hypotenuse the length of 26. So it's going to be just like the ones we've been doing, right? So we've got this 45, 45, 90 triangle, and the hypotenuse is 26. And we're trying to find the leg. Okay? So what's that going to look like? And then we divide by the square root of 2, right? And then if we want to simplify or make this rational, we would multiply by the square root of 2 on top and on bottom, right? And so that gives us 26 square roots of 2 over 2. Can we simplify that? What would it be? And then, of course, was it attendance? Attendance? Yeah. Oh, tardies. What you been tardy for?
Huh? I don't know. It's because, like, she told me 30, like, I walked in class, like, I used the restroom before, like, she was right when I walked in. I let her sit down, but I didn't start on my way.
Gotcha. Okay, you're ready to learn? Oh, well, we got number 8 to go. So number 8, it says find the length of the hypotenuse of a 45, 45, 90 with a leg of 50. So we've got a 45, 45, 90 and a leg of 50, and we want to find this. So what do we do? The 50 and the little deal? Like that? Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we would plug that in our calculator, you get a decimal answer, right? An approximate answer. What is it? Okay, so that's 45, 45, 90. Now, I do want to tell you that normally people use this to help them remember it. So 1, 1 square root of 2. 1, 1 meaning the two short sides are the same. Square root of 2 meaning the long side is that times the square root of 2. Does that make sense? Okay, now let's look at a 30, 60, 90s. We're going to learn a new triangle. Okay, what is the shortest side on this triangle? How do you know this is the shortest side? That's one way to look at it. I think of it as being across from the shortest angle, right? So it's across from the shortest angle, so it's the shortest side, right? So this is the shortest. Now, what is the longest side? The one across from the right angle, right? So this is the longest side. And then that means this one here is the medium side, and it's across from the medium angle, right? So that makes sense. That's just logical, right? Now, 30, 60, 90s, to me, are actually easier than 45, 45, 90s, believe it or not. So the shortest side, we'll call it X. The longest side is 2 times x. That means if the shortest side is 5, the longest side is 10. If the shortest side is 8, the longest side is. If the longest side is 20, what's the shortest side? 10, because you take half of it, right? And then the medium side is whatever the shortest side is times the square root of 3. Okay, so if this side is 5, this side is 5 square roots of 3. If this side is 6, this side is 6 square roots of 3. That side's 12. Y'all see what I'm saying? So that's your ratios. And a lot of people use this little jingle to help them remember it. 1, 2, square root of 3. Just remember the square root of 3 is smaller than 2. It's the middle one, actually. Y'all see? But 1, 2 square root of 3 just sort of rolls off the tongue. And 1 square root of 3, 2 does not. Okay? Okay, so let's apply this. Let's go to our worksheet. All right, so what they give us in this triangle right here? They gave us the shortest side. So the first thing we're going to do is find the longest side. So if the shortest side is 11, what's the longest side? 22. And then what's the medium side? Does anybody know? What? Yeah, 19.1. So it should be 11 times the square root of 3. Short side times the square root of 3, which is 19.1. Is that accurate? Okay, we're going to skip 10 and come back to it in a minute. Let's go to 12. Okay, what'd they give us on this one? They gave us the longest. So, first thing we need to do if we have the longest is find the shortest. How do you find the shortest if you have the longest? Divide by 2. So what's 30 divided by 2? 15. So what is this medium side over here? Well, it's going to be 15 times the square root of 3, which is 25 point what? Okay, so it's 26.0. Okay. Okay. Let's look at number 11. So on number 11, what did they give us? Which side? They gave us the shortest side, right? So when we're doing the longest side, it's the shortest side times 2. So that means we would have 2 times 5 square roots of 3. This trips everybody up. I want to see if any of y'all know what we should do. What, Jordan? I still couldn't hear you. I'm so sorry. Actually, that's what everybody thinks. But you don't distribute. 5 square roots of 3 is all one number. So you only multiply the 2 times the whole number 5. So you would do the 2 times the 5 and say it's 10 square roots of 3. Do y'all see what I'm saying? Now, we'll get into that another day. I'm not even going to try to say what I was about to. So 10 square roots of 3 is double 5 square roots of 3. It's kind of like saying you've got 5x times 2. What would that give you? 10x, right? It's sort of the same thing. And so this one over here, now this is where it gets a little tricky. Remember, we get this one by taking the short one times the square root of 3, right? So that means we have 5 square roots of 3 times the square root of 3. So when you're multiplying radicals, you multiply what's under the radical and what's outside of the radical. Well, this outside is a 1, right? There's one of these. So that's a 5 on the outside. But then what's this? Square root of 3 times square root of 3. Does anybody know what that is? Best guess. What's your best guess? Oh, that is a true statement, but not what I want. But it is true. What'd you say? That is not. but good guess. Way to put yourself out there. Anybody else got a guess? Anybody? 6? Nope, but good try. Anybody else? Okay, Jared has a correct answer, but not the answer I'm looking for. What'd you say, Jared? Square root of 9. But it's not the answer I'm looking for. What is the square root of 9? 3. So think about this for a minute, y'all. When you have the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, that's the same thing as the square root of 3 times 3, right? That's a number times itself. Taking the square root is what number is being multiplied times itself. Well, what number is being multiplied times itself? 3. So that's just 3. Does that make sense to you? And then what do we do with this 5 and this 3? What do we do with those guys? Multiply them. So what does that give us? 15. Does that make sense? Everybody good on that one? You understand what we did? It's a little tricky. It's not that hard. It's just a little tricky to understand at first. Okay, we're going to look at another one just like that. Look at number 10 with me. Okay, so on number 10, we've got 8 square roots of 3 for the long side. So let's find the short side first. What do we do to find the short side? Divide this by 2. Now, when we divide this by 2, what part of this do we divide by 2? Just the 8. So we do 8 divided by 2. What is that? 4 square roots of 3. And then over here, for this side, we're going to do 4 square roots of 3 times the square root of 3. Right? Now, what does that give us? We're going to have 4 times 3. Why? Because square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. When you multiply a radical times itself, you just get rid of the radical. You're just left with that number. Because you're multiplying a number times itself and then taking the square root of it. And that's what square root is what number is being multiplied times itself. So what does that wind up with for our answer? 12. All right, we got one more similar to this one right here. What side did they give us? Yes, ma'am.
I need Jared maybe else to come check out.
Okay. How convenient. Okay, so what do we do with this? We're going to do this in class tomorrow, okay? You don't have to worry about it for homework. What do we do with this? Divide by 2. So what does that give us when we divide by 2? So our short side is 26 square roots of 3, right? And then our long side will be 26 square roots of 3 times the square root of 3. Well, what does that wind up giving us? 78. Do y'all see this one? We got one, excuse me. I've had so much congestion, but it's not like in my chest. It's like in my throat. I think it's things are beginning to start blooming. So it's like allergy stuff. And then we're supposed to have really cold weather this weekend. Did y'all know that?
Yeah.
Like possible chance of snow. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's like 7 yesterday.
Yeah. But just so y'all know, everybody's always like, the weather's got so weird. Y'all, it's been this way since I was a kid. I mean, like, it's just Arkansas weather. Arkansas weather is just erratic. I mean, it's just, it just is, it's always been this way. I bet if you went back in time to when the settlers were first settling these areas, it was probably the same way then. It's probably like driving through and it was a nice, winter day, and it's like, this place is nice. I think we'll set up camp here. And then 2 weeks later, bam, snowstorm, and they're like, what happened to that nice weather? Okay, look at this one. This one trips up most people, and it's actually really simple. Which side did they give us? They gave us the medium side, right? So, based on that, what would the short side be? That's not wrong. You just make it harder than you have to. What, Jordan? Who, Noemi? What'd you say? You're going to talk louder because this thing's right in my ear. It's just 21. That short side is just 21. Now let's talk about why. To get this side over here, we do the short side times the square root of 3. So that means this is the short side. Y'all see that? So what does that make this side over here? 42. That's it. That's the whole lesson. What do y'all think about those? Do you like them? Hudson, you like those, don't you? Yeah, I knew you would. You like those. Jordan, you like those? Mm-hmm. You want me to do 15?
On the other side, 13.
Let's look at 15, okay? So, if we want to look at number 15, it says an equilateral triangle. Now, what does equilateral mean? All sides are the same. So, if all sides are the same, what are the angles? So this is, and if they're all the same, what do they have to be? 60. So 60, 60, 60. And then it says has an altitude. Now, an altitude on an equilateral triangle is going to split it right in half, right? So that's going to be 90. What does this angle right here become? Right here. That's 30. Starting off with knowing what you're looking at going to make a whole lot of sense, right? And it says determine the length of the side of the triangle if the altitude, so this is 27 right here. Which side is it? Well, it's the medium side, right? That's the medium side. So we got to find this side. Or we can find that side. Actually, this is going to be the easiest side to find. Because how do you get the medium side of this triangle? Let's call that x, right? Times square root of 3, right? Now, how do we solve this? Now, we can't leave it like this. So how are we going to get rid of that square root of 3? Perfect. Most people say square root of 2 because of what we did earlier. But it's not the same thing. You don't always multiply by the square root of 2. You multiply by itself. What is that? What does that give us on the bottom? We'll get there in a second. What's that on the bottom? 3. So on the top, that's 27 square roots of 3, right? Can 27 be divided by 3?
Yes.
So this is 9 square roots of 3, right? So what's this? Long side.
18 squared.
Perfect. 18 square root of 3. How do we know it? The long side's twice as long as the short side. Okay. Tomorrow, you will do the practice side in class together. I mean, not together, but y'all can help each other. I don't care if you help each other or not. Doesn't matter to me.